Hello and welcome to the Reality of Dreams. I'm your host, Robin Cunningham, coming to you a little bit early today because of the nature of what I'm sharing for today's episode. So, this could possibly be a long one, and I don't want to go past 9 o'clock. So, I'm hoping to have this finished sometime before 8 o'clock starts. So, hopefully, it doesn't go too long. But today, I am going to talk about something that I saw on YouTube that I could not just let go past, because this is unfortunately something that we will be seeing a lot in the very near future, and it is something that we need to take very seriously. Yes, this is pertaining to dreams, but it is also pertaining to the end of days, Russell Brand, and aliens. So, like and subscribe, share with your friends. Let's roll the intro and jump into it. Hello, welcome back. So, remember, like I said, like and subscribe, share with your friends and family. So, we are going to talk about some stuff. I have a couple clips that I'm going to play in here, and hopefully I don't get pegged for copyright infringement or something like that. But as far as I know, you can take, unless they say otherwise, you can use a sample clip from somebody's stuff on YouTube as long as it's short and you give them credit. So, this is going to be from Russell Brand's show. I actually have two clips that we're going to talk about, but first we're going to get into the first portion. If you would like to donate, do so right down in the description. I can send you the link right here. There's some stuff right here. Also, all that stuff is right there, okay? So I'll let that roll across the screen for a little bit if you want to support, contribute. Also, everything else is in the description right down below as well. So say hi. Let us know where you're coming from. And if you have any questions or comments, be greatly appreciated also. So let's go ahead and jump into this lesson. Now, we are still trying to raise enough money to be able to donate these board and trains, these service dogs to these veterans. We get the dog, train the dog, and we take the dog to the veteran unless somebody wants to help us get the dog to the veteran. But basically, that's... we don't want to talk about that, but we're trying to raise a significant amount to be able to do that. Now, normally, to train a service dog is typically cost the person $15,000 to $50,000 to train a service dog. This is something we are doing free. We do it for free for veterans. A veteran comes to us and says they need a service dog, and we get to work. Okay? So, all of that right down there also. So, let's go ahead and get into this. All right. Most Christians don't believe that God speaks in dreams today. It's in the Bible, but is that really for today? And the answer is absolutely yes, it is for today, because God doesn't change. If he spoke in dreams in the Old Testament or the New Testament, then he still speaks in dreams. Because the whole idea that those things were for the past, those things aren't for today, is wrong. That's saying that God changes, and that's saying that you do not believe the Word of God. Okay? Now, do you know who believes that dreams can or do have some sort of significant meaning other than just being random firings of neurons or our psyche's way of processing information? Basically about the entire world outside of our own Western ideological view of life and the supernatural. So basically everybody. So think about this. If I asked you to list 3 of the biggest events in your life, you probably wouldn't list, maybe some of you would watching this because you're dreamers, but you probably wouldn't list a dream that you had as one of the top 3 most influential things that has ever happened in your life. I would. But dreams have influenced the world that we live in, from music to inventions all the way to Buddhist teachings and philosophy and our old Western worldview. For example, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, and Nikola Tesla, that was my wife trying to call me, Nikola Tesla, all practiced what is called hypnagogic sleep. And this is where a person enters into a half-sleep, half-awake state where they can get answers to questions about inventions, math equations, advanced physics, etc. Give me 1 second while I respond to my wife here. While I text her, okay? Because she's going to need something from me and I can't help her right now. Okay. All right. So what that is when they go into a half sleep, half awake state where they can get answers to questions about inventions, math equations, advanced physics, and so forth. And so what would happen is Tesla, Einstein, and Edison would fall asleep, and Edison in particular would have like a large object with him. So when he fell asleep, it would fall out of his hand and hit the floor and startle him and wake him up so he could remember the answers to things that he was looking for. Right? Now, Buddha, why Buddha? Buddha had a series of 5 dreams in which, quote unquote, the gods told him that he would become a great teacher and influencer for eons and ages to come. So that's interesting, right? Socrates also is known as the father of Western philosophy and once stated, I maintain that I have been commanded by the gods to do this through oracles and dreams in every way in which some divine influence or other has commanded a man to do anything. So we base a lot of our theological ideology or our Western philosophical ideology on stuff that Socrates taught, right? And now Socrates, he was a soldier and had many other occupations, and supposedly received a word from the Oracle of Delphi that claimed that he was the wisest man that ever existed. And obviously this is a lie because the Bible tells us that Solomon was the wisest man that ever existed. So right there we know it's a demon, right? Of course, then there was Jesus who existed after that, but Solomon existed 500 years before Socrates. So after receiving this revelation from the oracle, he set out on a mission to prove the oracle wrong and to question everything that anyone said that was considered to be a wise man, right? Now, Socrates still influences how teachers teach today. He encouraged deep thinking by asking hard questions about life that would cause a person to question the meaning of life. And teachers use this method today to encourage critical thinking. All right? Now, Socrates believed that humans had an eternal soul and that it was more important to feed the soul than the body. But unfortunately, that is a teaching that's still alive and well in today's society, and thus the world pursues the desires of the soul or carnal mind. So obviously Socrates wasn't a Christian. He was alive before Christ even, and he believed some pretty crazy things. He believed that he was on a mission from God and all this other stuff, right? From the gods. So we know that those are demons, right? Now, more often than not, this leads to people studying or believing in mystical teachings that are disguised as Gnosticism. They follow these things. They want to know dream interpretation and all this other stuff. And the church, by and large, rejects dream interpretation. A fair majority, believe it or not, Christians that believe that God speaks through dreams is very small. It's a very small percent. I want to say maybe 10% or less. It's not a very high number overall, like through the whole world, right? Even though it's in the Bible, people don't believe it. So what happens is when Christians don't believe the Bible and they can't give answers to people who are looking for answers, so what happens? They go out to the New Age, they go out to witchcraft, they go out to find power and to find answers that you couldn't offer because you didn't read your Bible, because you didn't study. Okay? Now, an interesting thing is, more often than not, when people start to believe in mystical teachings, they're really just disguised as Gnosticism. And I'm not talking about the Christian mystics. I personally do not like the term Christian mystic. I think that sounds witchy, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but I think that that's just not a good title for Christians. I don't think we should be called mystics because that is directly related to New Age and Gnosticism, okay? New Age is a religion. Gnosticism is a religion. They're both the same religion. I actually found out that Mormons share New Age beliefs. Actually, I learned that from Brian Melvin. If you haven't watched the interview we did with him on Thursday, go check it out. It's real good. And so New Age and enlightened or awakened dreamers don't typically focus on their dreams too much when they become really advanced in what they're practicing. And the reason is because they start to astral project to get out of their bodies and get into a sleep-wake state that allows them to be conscious and yet still be able to go out and do things. And this is evil. I know this because it was before I was a Christian. I looked into some things, practiced some things, studied some stuff. It is pretty evil to force yourself to astral project. You have to put yourself to sleep essentially get yourself into that in-between state where you can see demons and angels and whatever, and then you practice stepping out of your body so you don't wake yourself up, and you go and do the things that you want to do. Now, carnal-minded people have a tendency to start by doing lucid dreaming, and they cause themselves to have sex dreams and all kinds of things, which actually the New Age people frown on that, and they think you're just basically giving into your basic carnal instincts or carnal desires or animalistic desires, and that you're not even really fit. You'll never find satisfaction in life, and that you're not fit to be doing this stuff or whatever, like that. So they have their own little rules and morals, right? But anyway, they believe a lot of things, and a lot of it has actually crept into the church. All right, so we already talked about astral projection. The New Age believes that our consciousness, all of our consciousnesses, if I don't know if that's how you say it, plural, is all interwoven into one great God conscience, and that we're all experiencing each other's consciousness now. So literally life and death don't matter because you're all experiencing each other's life through their eyes in one way, shape, or another, which is complete nonsense, right? But people believe that the universe is the one that speaks to them, and we're all part of that universal or God consciousness. All right, and the people think that the universe causes them to have dreams. So many people get into the New Age and use their awake sleep state to enter into altered states and communicate with spirits. I watched this with Stephen Greer and Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where there are several groups. They call them remote viewers. The government used remote viewers to have them go and look into places and see things that they couldn't see otherwise. The Stephen Greer and other groups, like his extraterrestrial exposure group or whatever, they teach people how to astral project and how to speak to these extraterrestrial beings so that they can get in there and encourage more people to do this, right? This is illegal spiritual manipulation of natural laws and quantum physics, honestly, and spiritual laws that they're manipulating in order to satisfy their own soul-led desires, all right? Now, New Agers are convinced that there's life out there beyond our planet. They communicate with them. They have teachers that will teach you how to communicate with aliens. They're not aliens. They're not your space brothers, okay? They're part of the Great Deception. They're not coming to help advance us to a new conscious age. None of that is true. They're coming to steal, kill, and destroy because they're demons. They're demons in flesh. They haven't died yet. But anyway, that's something to get into another time. I won't even cover that fully here. All right. So they communicate with them. Some of the people who practice this New Age or whatever you want to call it, enlightened or awakened teachings, this Gnostic teachings, they have seen or encountered them. Some have spoken to them. And most of the church just thinks that this is absolute hogwash or malarkey, or that these people are only speaking to demons and they're deceived. But don't ever stop to think, oh, then that means that demons are real. I hear that a lot. I hear that from people who don't think demons are a thing, that angels don't interact, that humans don't interact, and yet they think that when somebody is astral projecting and talking to an alien, that they're talking to a demon. Makes sense out of that. A lot of people don't think about that stuff, right? But anyway, most of the church thinks that this entire topic of aliens is unbiblical, and therefore that means it's not in the Bible. But is that actually the truth? And should we share a sentiment that is shared with the world? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip for you to watch, and this is from Russell Brand's show. All right, I'm going to play the first clip. We'll talk about that for a second, and then play the second clip, and then we'll go back into the teachings. Because I just want you to hear, he is teaching directly from the New Age. So if people think that Russell Brand is a Christian, you are not correct. He is a New Age enlightened seeker or whatever. So we're going to play this clip, listen to it, and then we're going to play the next clip and listen to that.
keep their model alive. The operator of the emergency call can't be bothered to listen to it. But I think what we have to seriously consider is that we have to now face that the whole human experiment is somewhat subjective. Everything that we consider to be real, our models of government, our models of nature, our models of theology, ontology and epistemology, are all now up for question. This is what we thought we knew. This is what we now know. You can't just be, oh, okay, bored about it or using it as an opportunity for promo. This means you have to consider what consciousness is, what reality is. There are creatures that can travel around the galaxies standing in that bloke's yard near his garage, and we're going to have to rewrite the Bible. To help us contemplate how we might alter our perspective on reality, here's an article from Daniel Pinchbeck's Substack. In recent decades, we've witnessed a profound convergence between science and mysticism, significantly informed by quantum physics. Many leading physicists of the 20th century espoused ideas that closely echo the insights of Eastern and Western mystics. They discussed concepts such as the participatory nature of the universe, the mental basis for the universe, and the idea of a unified consciousness that exists prior to materialization. For example, Max Planck, the physicist and genius, wrote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." I mentioned this.
Isn't that interesting? Focusing on consciousness, and if aliens exist, then we have to rewrite the Bible. Why is that? Why would he say that we have to rewrite the Bible if aliens exist? Because that's why the deception exists. That is their whole purpose and end game. Did you catch that? We have to rewrite the whole Bible. We have to rethink everything, because if we base our life on the Bible, then what we're doing is we are limiting our worldview to stupid things that are based off of what we can see, which is kind of contrary to everything that the Bible teaches, okay? Notice how he ties in quantum physics into this, right? So I want to talk about quantum physics in a second, but let's play the second clip here, which is really just a few seconds after the first clip in the show, and then we'll talk about that and continue on the lesson, okay?
Think about that in the chat. Experimental evidence over several generations has lent increasing credibility to these perspectives, with the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics awarded to experiments demonstrating the non-local reality of the universe, implying the integral role of consciousness in the ongoing co-creation of physical reality from quantum flux and energetic potential. Now, obviously, I don't fully understand what's meant by the information conveyed by Nobel Prize winners, and I know that a lot of people that are science, let's call them aficionados and ardent students of quantum physics, will say that postulating that those experiments prove that consciousness has an integral role in the nature of reality is a jump too far. But it seems likely that the mysteries around consciousness might be connected to the many other mysteries around creation and the laws of the universe. And I would say, practically, it's worth considering new models at this point, because we need change, and we've just seen a bloke on the news saying that Alf's in his garden going through his bins.
It's more than an hour after that bright light. Officers meeting up with the caller and his family.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
What's clear, they're taking this call seriously.
Hey, this might sound like a really dumb question,
but is God real?
Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Is God real? This is a man who supposedly believes in God, who supposedly a lot of people claim are Christian, and he is not. He is New Age, as the day is long. Here's the thing. Okay, that was the last clip. He showed the body cam footage of the actual police that showed up to the report of this kid whose name is Angel, lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and something came down in his backyard, and there were two creatures. One was about 8 or 9 feet tall. The other one was about 10 feet tall in his backyard that he said had very large eyes that kind of glowed or reflected neon, and he could see they had eyelashes and eyelids, and they blinked and stuff, and they had huge mouths, and they were very tall and strong with long legs and long arms and a stretched torso is what he said, right? He saw that. He called 911 and reported that. He posted on his YouTube channel, Alien Society 51, the footage that his mom took of them looking in the backyard at those creatures. okay? And so what I would like to point out is that this is no longer something that you can take lightly. We have just been called crazy, lunatic, conspiracy theory Christians for pointing this out, but it's right in the Bible, and we're going to talk about that. And what I want to point out is that this happened on May 1st, and the government is not trying to cover it up. They are not trying to deny it. That means that this stuff is about to be a reality because they've reached the point where both they and the Lord have decided that they will be able to be revealed. And that, honestly, should scare the heck out of you. I'll just say this. If there's any hell in you right now, that this should scare the hell, literally, out of you, that you will not want to do anything carnal anymore. So now we're going to get into how does this tie into the Bible, into the dreams in the Bible, and does the Bible actually speak about aliens? Because the church thinks, no, it does not. And yet, there are at least 2 dreams in the Bible that do speak of it, and several other passages in scriptures that speak about it. And we're going to cover that, and that's why I'm posting this, because I found some of these answers in understanding dream interpretation and reading the Bible. So, all this stuff does tie together into quantum physics, and the reason being that New Age teaches this, that we're all held together and tied together by some consciousness. They refuse to call it God, okay? But they call it the God consciousness, which makes all of us a God, okay? It's very twisted. They take things from the Bible, they take truths and half-truths and twist them, okay? And so we are all interconnected. They have done studies that show that if you take a particle, a molecule, and you split off like a piece of it, or you split it in half, and you send one in the opposite direction and one in the other direction, they will spin in the same direction. Now, because they're intertwined, if you stop one particle and cause it to spin in the other direction, that same particle, which could be any distance away without any correlation or contact or manipulation in any way, shape, or form, will then stop at the same rate and start to spin in the same direction as that particle that split off of it because they're interwoven. They call that quantum entanglement. And so they're studying quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation, which you can look up on Google, where they can actually send information from Earth to space in seconds, like that. Massive amounts of data and so forth to space instantaneously. No digital uploads, no streaming. Okay, so let's get into the Word of God here and look at this, all right? Now, as you see, it's commonly shared idea that if aliens exist, then the Bible is false. And that could not be any further from the truth. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, how does all this tie into dreams and dream interpretation? And that's a good question. I'd like to point out to you a few scriptures throughout the Bible, including the book of Daniel and some of the end times dreams that are found in the book of Daniel, which is actually several books listed into one. So, number 1, let's answer this. Is the Bible silent about aliens? No, it is not. It is very subtle and easily overlooked if a person can't see past their theology that they were taught or the doctrine of their denomination. Nevertheless, they are there for you to see. They are not aliens. Okay, listen to this. This is from Isaiah chapter 13, verse 5. They come from a far-off country, from the end of the heavens, the Lord and his weapons of indignation to destroy the whole world. And one may say, oh, heavens? Well, then that means that it's angels that are coming with God to destroy the land, because God would send a destroyer to destroy things, right? He sends angels to kill people. It's done. It's been in the Bible. It's happened. But you won't think that in a minute when I read to you a couple verses later of what's going on, what these weapons of indignation are doing. Now, the word for earth in this is lands. It's aretz, which means lands or earth, okay? So he didn't just come from a distant lands to destroy the whole land. He came to destroy the whole planet. He came from it says that literally they come from a far-off planet, from the farthest ends of the heavens. And of course, the Hebrew word for space is hashemayim, the heavens, okay? Like when God says to Abraham, like the stars in the heavens, in the Hashemayim, so your descendants will be. Okay? Now, if we go to verse 10, Isaiah 13, verse 10, it says, and this is about the end of days, this is how we identify it's about the end of days. It says, "For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give light, the sun will be darkened in its going forth, and the moon will not cause its light to shine." Of course, the moon won't cause its light to shine if the sun is dark, because the moon doesn't have its own light. It reflects the sun. See how God knows science? Interesting, right? Okay, so we established that this chapter is an end times chapter because this is directly quoting what Jesus said will happen in the end of days, where the sun will not give its light and the moon will turn blood red. Okay? So then we skip down a couple verses. We get to verses 15 through 18, and it says, "Everyone who is found will be thrust through," meaning they're going to be stabbed right through. All right? "And everyone who is captured will fall by the sword. Their children also will be dashed to pieces before their eyes, and their houses will be plundered, and their wives ravished." That means that they will take people's children. There will be husbands, wives, and children at this time. And they will smash those children to pieces. Literally, smash them so hard and so many times that they break into pieces. And then it says their wives will be ravished. Their house will be plundered and their wives ravished. That can mean to be taken as a captive and forced to do whatever they want you to do. And it also means to be raped in front of their husbands. Does that sound like angels to you? Because that certainly does not sound like angels to me. That's straight up demonic. And then he says, "Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, who will not regard silver. And as for gold, they will not delight in it." Interesting how money, gold and silver, will have no appeal to these creatures. "And their bows will dash young men to pieces, and they will have no pity on the fruit of the womb, and their eye will not spare children." How hateful. This is what's coming in the end of days. And it says here specifically, they come from the farthest reaches of space. So is the Bible silent about aliens? No, we're just not looking where we need to look. So if aliens showed up all of a sudden, does that mean that we need to rethink the Bible and theology and that God is suddenly wrong and Christianity is wrong? No, it means we need to get back in the Word and read it for what it is and say, oh, here it was, right in front of my eyes. So one could speculate, yeah, maybe these are angels. But if anything, they were fallen angels. But no angel will ravish or rape a man's wife in front of her husband. No angel is going to take an unborn child and smash it to pieces. Those are, at the very least, they're demons. And according to the book according to Peter and Jude, the angels are chained in hell right now. The only one that's not is Satan. So he would have to call him the one, not the weapons of his indignation, but the weapon of his indignation. Okay? Now, these things, they're pre-dead demons. They're incarnate demons that have not died yet. Okay? I want to get into that another time. They're hybridized humans that have their DNA altered. And so we actually see a reference to this in the book of Romans, and we see it in the book of Jude as well, and in the book of Revelation. Well, Romans 1:20 through 23 says, "For since the creation of the world," so this establishes what time frame we're looking at. This establishes that this is talking about when God created the world, so what was happening in the days of Noah. "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds, and four-footed animals, and creeping things." Okay, so verse 23, we want to focus on that for a second. The word for changed in verse 23 is, I think it was alpaxin or something like that, and it means to change, transform, alter, or exchange. Okay? Now, what did they transform or alter? All right? It says they altered the glory of God for the image and likeness of mortal man and birds, and four-footed beasts and reptiles. So if we read this in Greek, it literally says they transformed the glory of God into the image of man and beast, bird and reptile, man and serpent. Now we see this in Genesis chapter 6, verse 7, right after. And we always focus on chapter 6 as, and the Nephilim were on the earth in those days when the sons of God entered into the daughters of men. First of all, that word right there, ha-adam, there's three different types of men, ha-adam, ish, and then it's ben ha-adam, ben ish, and there's one other category of humans, but there's a difference between the daughters of Adam, ha-adam, that means low-ranked, low-level, or of no or little worth man. And then ben ish means mighty man, who is made high, who is a chief and ruler. That's an implication of the type of man that is pure in their genetic stock. Okay? But we'll get into that another time. But Genesis 6:7. So when it says in Genesis 6:4, they saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and they took any for their wives, that means the daughters of low birth. The daughters that had of man that had very little worth and they were genetically altered. We can get into that. It's in my book. If you want to go watch the course before the book comes out and get all this information, go to firesidegrace.com. Under our online courses, you can become a monthly partner, or you can sign up for free as a invited guest and watch it for free because we care more about getting things out for free. We have to pay our bills, obviously, but he gave free, we give freely. All right? So look at Genesis 6:7. It says, "So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them." Now, in Hebrew, it says something very specific. It says, from man and beast to creeping thing and bird. Okay? It goes like this, from man and beast, comma, to creeping thing and bird. Okay? Now, the word for beast here, that's from ha-adam to behemoth or bahamot, right? So behemoth is how we would say it. So for man and behemoth, which we see in the book of Job, which fits the description of dinosaurs pretty well. And then it says, and for creeping things and birds, or lizards, or serpents and birds. That's what the word, I think it's the word ramesh, right? So take note that he paired and grouped the four different beings into categories: man and beast, lizard and bird. Okay, so he made two categories out of four different creatures, right? And then if you look at the fossil record, if you know anything about what they believe about dinosaurs, and interestingly, the original theory of evolution that Darwin shared was, I think it was called macroevolution or microevolution, I'm not sure, but what he believed was that birds evolved into dinosaurs, and what they teach now is that dinosaurs evolved into birds, and that's why dinosaurs disappeared and birds remained. Well, they have found significant fossil evidence to show that many of the dinosaurs had feathers or were born with feathers at birth and then they came off. There are several dinosaurs who are lizards mixed with birds, or creeping things and birds, okay? So there's a reason God said this. And then there was man mixing with beast, man and beast, and bird and reptile. The bird and reptile is the dinosaur, and the man and beast are the human hybrids that were mixing with animals. We can get into that some other time, but you know, it says that they were chasing after altered flesh. Look at this, okay? So we go to Jude 1:7. It states, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, as set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Okay, the word for strange flesh is heterosarkos, okay? Heteros is the word that we want to, and not heteros, it's heteros, okay? A-S, not O-S. And this word means to be altered or different. So when it says they indulged in sexual immorality and went after strange flesh, what it's actually saying is they were sexually immoral and went after altered flesh. Well, what in the world is altered flesh? Something that was changed that is not what it once was. That is what altering something means. You changed something. Remember, Paul was talking about in Romans 1:20 through 23, how in the beginning of time they altered or transformed the image of God for the image of corruptible man and beast and bird and lizard? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay? So what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah? Where do we hear about Sodom and Gomorrah? The first place we hear about it is Genesis 14, and we find out that Sodom and Gomorrah was inhabited by Rephaim. Those Rephaim died and became demons. We see that in Isaiah 14 when it says, the dead in hell below, beneath, are stirred up to meet you. Basically, anytime it talks about the dead, it uses the word Rephaim, and that's in reference to demons. And it uses the names that they had while they were alive and describes them in Genesis 14, and then uses the names of the different tribes they came from. Rephaim, Ha'amim, the Hazuzim, the Kiriathite, the Kiriathim, the Horites. It uses their names to categorize the demons later when it's talking about the demons that torment. Go look it up in Hebrew. Do the research. Genesis 14, we see one of the tribes of hybrids that's called the Hazuzim. Well, one of the descriptions of the beast that has 4 heads is a Hazuzim. He has a male. It literally says this in Daniel in Daniel chapter 8. Listen, in Daniel chapter 8:5, Daniel says he sees the male goat in his dream, okay? He uses the word saphir for male goat and the word Hazazim, which means multiple heads of female goats, because Zizi or Zizim comes from female goats. Well, guess what? The word for Hazuzim means fullness of breast and wild beast. So why would they call them wild beasts with big boobs in Hebrew? Because the Hebrew names identified characteristics of the people. Just like when you look at a baby when they're born, and you decide, I'm not going to name them until they're born. We're going to name them based off of what we know, what we see they look like. And then this baby comes out and he has red hair, and you name him Rory. Rory means red like fire. Or you see him and you call him Ruddy, which means red, because he's a redhead. Right? It's a description of a physical feature. It still happens today. It happened more back then, but it still happens today, right? Okay. So Daniel 8:5, Daniel sees the male goat, the saphir, and it has female heads. Okay? And this is a correlation to the end of days and what's happening, as we learn from Gabriel when he explains to Daniel that the dream that he had in Daniel 8 was about the end of days. But also, we see Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2:28, where Daniel reveals to Nebuchadnezzar that his dream about the golden statue was about the end of days. But we look over that. And we hear that theology that, oh, this is the Medes and this is the Greek and this is the last empire. This is the last kingdom right here, the iron mixed with clay, and then the other two have already come and passed. That's not true. It's not true. When he says what was and is to come, he's talking about Babylon. Babylon that existed, Babylon that exists, and Babylon that's still coming. In fact, the harlot that rides the beast is Mystery Babylon. That is Babylon. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. So Daniel 2:28, it says, but there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. And then he explains to him what happened. But notice he said, this is what will be in the latter days. That means the end of days. And then he tells the king that the statue represents these 4 different kingdoms that will come, his kingdom, gold, and then 3 kingdoms that come after his at the end of days. And that he would be the gold head, or the human aspect. Well, all of those kings were Babylonian kings. Bear with me. I know what you're thinking. But they said this was the Medes and this was the Persians. Okay. There will be other Babylonian kingdoms as well at the end of days, okay? These 2 kingdoms, 2 of those kingdoms, are the bronze and the iron mixed with clay. Now, the word for bronze here is nahash, which is also the word for serpent. In fact, it means diviner, witchcraft, serpent. All right, and the reason that the snake is called nahash is because it supposedly glowed. It can mean glowing one or shining one. Supposedly glowed with a brass-like glow to it. Okay, and we see that he points out that it has 10 toes, and we see that the feet have 10 toes, right? Because he says there's feet. Okay, naturally we assume that feet have 10 toes. Well, we learn from Daniel and from John the Revelator that the end times beast has 10 horns. 10 horns, 10 kings. They're 10 kings. There's 10 toes represent the 10 kings that give their power over to the Antichrist. That's in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And John reveals that this kingdom comes up, right? Daniel 7, we see that there are 4 beasts, okay? Now listen to this. The 4 beasts have a total of 7 heads and 10 horns. And out of those 10 horns, one little horn rises up, and that's the one that becomes the Antichrist. You have to actually go and read it in Daniel 7. It talks about the first 3 beasts, and then it says that the 4th beast had 4 heads. So the first 3 beasts have 1 head, but the last beast has 4 heads. 4. So that's 7 heads. And there are 10 horns on these 7 heads. Isn't that something interesting? Right? Revelation 17:3 says, and the woman that rides the beast is called the Mystery Babylon. Interesting side point. It says that she is filled with the names of blasphemies. The word for filled here means that her belly is full and overflowing, that it's gorged out. It's insinuating that she's pregnant with the names of abominations. Well, what is the mark of the beast all about, folks? The mark of the what? The mark of the name? Yes, you are correct. The mark of the name. And she has what in her belly? The names of blasphemies, the names of abominations. Okay? It's about the mark of the name or the number of the name. Okay? The word for name in Hebrew can mean, it's Shem. It can mean name, glory, renown, mark, or memorial. So the name of God is the mark of God or the renown of God. The name of the beast is the renown or memorial or mark of the beast. The name is the mark. How does that happen? Because if you read Revelation 12:17, I believe it's Revelation 12:17, it talks about the serpent going after the woman's seed, right? It says he waged war with the woman's seed. He uses 2 words that are very interesting. He uses the word meta for with, and then the word spermata for seed. Spermata means sperm, seed, okay? Meta means to be changed or altered. So he went to change or alter the seed of the woman. And now here, remember Isaiah 13:5. Here's some scriptures that show us that there will be space travel in the end of days, all right? Isaiah 13:5. The weapons of his indignation come from the farthest reaches of the heavens, of space, from distant planets. Okay? That's what it says, Isaiah 13:5. We have Amos 9. Even though they dig into hell, thence shall mine hand take them. And though they climb up to the heavens, to space, from there I will bring them down. How about Nehemiah 1:8-9? Remember, I pray, the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and keep my commandments and do them, though some of you were cast out to the farthest parts of the heavens, yet I will gather them from there and bring them to the place which I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. How did they get scattered into the heavens? We read these scriptures and we don't think anything about it, and yet it's there in plain sight. So the whole purpose of this message was to have you consider, Do you actually have to rethink the Bible if aliens exist? Will it change your paradigm? Or do we just need to read the Bible for what it is and get outside of what we've been taught for so many years and figure out how is this all happening, and yet it appears the Bible doesn't have the answer? The Bible has all of the answers. No, the Mystery Babylon is not the money system that we have right now. It's not. I don't know what verse you're asking me. How are they not photos or videos of the aliens' backyard? Go watch the video. It's on this thing, Alien Society. If God's not real, he would not be alive. Yeah, but you can't prove God's not real. He's a fool because he doesn't read the Word of God, right? Robin Bolo just preached against rewriting the Bible. It's interesting. A lot of big words. I don't know who Hokmah is, but... Okay, well, all right, guys. That's all for today. Thank you all for watching and being a part of this. Hopefully you will share this with your friends and your family, get the word out and everything. And just, if you have questions or concerns, please shoot us an email, firesidegrace@yahoo.com. Yes, we know that some people put our name in their stupid little trash email things, and we get spam mails from them. Whatever. We're not going to change our email. We're not going to stop giving it out because you're a scumbag. We'd appreciate it if you'd stop doing it, though. But firesidegrace@yahoo.com. You can send us your comments or questions and so forth. All right? Love you guys. Be blessed. And I am going to go put the baby to bed. All right? Until next